Attacking football.
Attacking football.
Attacking football. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Attacking Football podcast. It's going to be an interesting one, but first, let me start by reintroducing a man who has been in the isolation booth from hell and is finally back. Josh, welcome back, mate. How you doing?
Thank you, mate. I'm very good. I've got an extra layer on my head, so the winter's a little bit warmer this year.
Yeah, you have.
You've
grown a coat.
I can confirm the Miracle Grow does work. I did at this stage like to say other plant stimulants are available, but yeah. And I also wouldn't suggest putting Miracle Grow on your head. That's also a disclaimer.
To all the kids at home, Josh representing the bold is not best crew for this podcast. Joining us as ever is Scott. Welcome back, mate. How you doing?
Doing good, yeah. How are you?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. My opponent for the podcast, Dylan. Welcome, mate. How you doing? Have you warmed up?
I'm just going to set the tone very early, and we're going to pop this into the podcast. we're going to read a quote in the back. This is going to set the tone. Good is not good enough. You have to be even better. And that is what I'm going to be in this podcast. Even better.
We'll see.
I don't know how I'm going to be better then, but let's go.
And then finally, as ever, we've got producer Alfie in the studio. Alfie, how you doing, mate? Welcome.
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. I don't really know if I'm 10 hog in or 10 hog out at the moment, so hopefully by the end of it, I can have an answer.
I don't think you've ever known.
Nah, you know what? It just changes every minute, and I just go with it. Do you know what I mean? If we score, he's the best gaffer in the world, but once we concede, the geezer needs to go.
The naivety of youth there. Thank you, Alfie. But yeah, Alfie's kind of giving away the topic of the podcast, which is going to be this. Are we Ten Hag in? Are we Ten Hag out? One thing is for certain, the situation at Old Trafford right now needs addressing. It is an absolute horror show. I don't think even Dylan, who is the most ardent Ten Hag in merchant that I've ever met in my life, can argue with the fact that it's a shit show at the club at the moment. It's been a horrific start to the season. Before we get into our fight, Dill, Josh, you haven't been on for a while. What have you made of the start of the season?
Oh, do you know what? It's similar to Alfie. I've had moments where I've been like, this, and I feel like it's the same example people are using. The Crystal Palace game, I saw flashes of us playing football, and the football that I'd like to see. And I thought, you know what? If we could finish a few chances, then I could get on board with this. However, how long can you wait to finish chances? Because I think it's been 2.5 years we've been waiting for someone to put the ball in the back of net properly on a consistent basis. I know we had Rashford do it for a while, but now that I've got it, I've found myself pulling my hair out more often than not. And it's which is not somewhere who used to be bold, not somewhere someone who used to be bold wants to be. But I'm getting towards the end of my wick, if I'm being honest. I feel like nothing has changed, and that's the biggest thing that stinks. And you look around the Premier League, you can look around the continent, but the Premier League, and you see new managers in who are at least having an impact with style of play. We were beaten by one of them on Sunday.
Yep.
Who's been in less time.
Beating another one a few weeks ago in Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. So that is kind of what stings to me, is that it seems that other managers, both new and old, but are getting a tune out of players and a style of play on the pitch that we're not necessarily seeing at United this season or last season. Now, last season he did have an excuse, which people I think kind of accepted at the back of their mind, that there were so many injuries.
Yeah,
they weren't the only team who had them, but there were so many. But to start the season in this way with a full strength team, bar Luke Shaw / a left back, should I say, because Malacia is still not back, is slightly concerning.
It's a little bit more than concerning. I think there is a consensus among the fan base now that it's time up, and I've been quite on the fence throughout the turmoil of last year. I've never really publicly been Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, because I wasn't really sure. But week before, I think I finally had enough. and I publicly went, no, the fella's got to go now. One person who isn't publicly Ten Hag out is Dylan. Dylan, your manager.
I'm not Ten Hag out in private either, just in case anyone was wondering. Can I just say, right? United do have a style of play. I
do they?
That's 100%. They do have a style
Can
of
you
play.
hear it? Because I'm clueless, to be honest.
They build in a 3-2, right? They build in a 3-2. Number one, that's a part of your style. They press high. They try and use verticality when out of possession. That is pressing directly. Verticality. It's a vertical tiki-taka. That is what Ten Hag's style of play is, and he's trying to implement that at Manchester United. Is it working to the level it should work? Probably not. But there's a definite style of play and there's definite patterns of play in how Manchester United play. So I don't really buy into the whole there's no style when Manchester United play. Against Spurs at the weekend, there was absolutely no style. It was appalling in every sense of the word. It was the worst performance in his tenure. And we've lost 7-0 to Liverpool. So that will tell you how bad it really, truly was. I even thought the 3-0 defeat to Liverpool 3 weeks ago was nowhere near as bad on any close level to the way that Spurs game was. It seemed like he abandoned every single principle he's even built up at the club. Spurs tossed us aside.
Yeah.
I can't even use the red card as an excuse. I usually would, but I can't because they would have hockeyed us either way. That game was only going in one direction. And it looked like he abandoned every single thing he's ever believed in at the club. And the approach to the game was abysmal. It was abysmal. But I do think there's been positive signs at the beginning of the season in every game. I even thought there was positive signs in the Liverpool game. Despite Liverpool being the better side and deservedly winning the game. But look, we're going to get into it a bit more as we go on. But I do believe he can turn it around. Do I think he'll turn it around? I've been in this situation for the last 10 years with 6 different managers and they've never turned it around. So he probably won't. And he probably will leave. But do I think he could turn it around given enough time? Yeah. But look, it's a difficult one. And I don't sit here like saying that anyone who wants Ten Hag gone is wrong. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. And if you, like, there's enough evidence to suggest that you're right at the same time. It's just my belief that I think he is one of the best managers on the market personally.
But he's not on the market. I really wish he was on the market, to be perfectly honest with you. Well, let's go to let's go to your assertion that he has a style of play, right? Let's take it for the moment as read that he has a style of play. If it's not working, why is he persisting with it? If he doesn't have the players to fit the system, why is he persisting with it? Because you can't argue with the fact that
I do think he has the players
and this season,
to fit the system.
No, I agree with you, but he's going to say that he doesn't, right? Because he's saying, I
don't think he said
I want to play that way, but the results aren't coming. The performances aren't coming. The only decent performance we've had this season, only decent performance was against Crystal Palace, and we drew the game 0-0 because we couldn't.
No, we were good against Brighton as well. We were good against Brighton as well, even though we lost.
Which we lost.
The Fulham game. Yeah, but we were a very good side to win the game.
We were
good against Fulham as well. But you have said. See, and I'll give you credit here, and this is why he isn't changed. You've said in the past he is stubborn, and he's always been. No, and but every Dutch coach is stubborn. Every single Dutch coach is stubborn. They think their way of football is the correct way to play football. Van Gaal was stubborn, Cruyff was stubborn, and Ten Hag is stubborn. Ten Hag's 3 favourite coaches are Van Gaal, Rinus Michels, and Johan Cruyff. He thinks that is the way to play football, and he is stubborn. And will it cost him his job? Possibly. There is some things he needs. I don't think like he would say he doesn't have the players available to play the system that he wants to play, because I do think the players are there available to play the system that he wants to play. But it seems like they're not carrying out the correct instructions to play that system. Why are we playing that lower line? I cannot get my head around why that line is not pushing up a tiny bit further, because everything else on the pitch isn't going in the right way because that line is so deep. Is that an instruction from him? If it is, it's the wrong instruction. Or are the players scared to actually push up that extra bit up the pitch? Against Liverpool, the line is literally one of the... sorry, not Liverpool, Spurs. That line is one of the main reasons we lost that game, because it was so deep. If that's an instruction from him, it's idiotic. If it's not, why aren't the players doing it? That's my way of viewing it.
So this is my question on that. Sorry, LA.
No, you're fine.
You mentioned this. That was the thing that sort of piqued my interest when you started talking at the beginning. You say that we're a pressing team, and I do see players in our team press, but I don't see us press as a team, right?
As a
and
unit.
a large,
Yeah.
I agree.
a large, a large part of that may well be because of that low line that you're talking about. But the strangest thing for me about, let's take the Tottenham game specifically, regardless of how new they are to the team, both De Ligt and Mazraoui have played under Ten Hag before, right? Yeah, and Martinez. So he's got a load of defenders in that back line who have played under him before. So to them, surely the more natural thing to do is to push high.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%.
So do you think it's them making a decision to drop deep? I know this is sort of the question you asked, but I'm interested in specifically why you think it's happening, because it is his defense. Is it them making a conscious decision to drop deep, or is he saying, I'm worried about something, so drop a bit deeper?
Well, look, Ten Hag is one of the most, what's the word I'm looking for, meticulous managers on the planet. And I genuinely will say that, and I truly believe that he's detail orientated. When players do things wrong, this is from past players that have spoken about him, he'll sit them down individually and as a team and show them where they've gone wrong. I cannot for the life of me, and this is why I'm so confused as to why it keeps happening, I cannot for the life of me think they are watching games week in, week out, seeing how detrimental that low line is to the rest of the team. I'm not telling the team to push up. That's the one thing I can't get my head around. We've pushed the fullbacks high in the press before. It's worked against Aston Villa. They're the two times I've seen it properly work. High fullbacks against Aston Villa, away and at home, and it's worked. I don't think we ever done it again. Why? I cannot understand. If it's him, fair enough. He has to take so much stick and criticism for it, but I can't, for the life of me, think he's continually telling that line not to push a bit higher.
Can I give you an answer? Can I give you an answer as to why?
Why?
Because there isn't a coach in the world that thinks that you set up against every single side the same way. So you don't set up against Brighton the same way that you set up against Aston Villa, right? It's just completely
absolutely,
different. You set up differently against Manchester City, and you set up differently against Liverpool. It's a completely different game, and it's even more different than when you factor in whether you're playing home or whether you're playing away. It's a completely different system. It's a completely different setup. The principle should remain the same, but the setup is different. You play. You think about, I mean, one of the things that we talk about in the Attacking Football group chat a lot is American football. And the most successful coach in history is Bill Belichick. And the one thing that he did is he would look at the opponent and go, I'm going to take away your worst weapon and you can try and beat me with the rest. Whatever your best weapon is, I'm going to take that away from you and you beat me with anything else that you've got. If you beat me, fair play. If you don't, whatever. So Ten Hag is looking at, let's say, the weekend. He's looking at Spurs and he's going, how do they set up? How do I counter them? Where am I looking? And he's gotten it wrong.
No, he definitely got it wrong against Spurs, 100%.
But he's also getting it wrong in every other game as well. We're winning games through individual brilliance, not through absolutely playing people off the park. Even the games that we have won this season, Southampton rocked Old Trafford for the first 30 minutes of that game, and we didn't know what to do with them.
It wasn't at Old Trafford, so they didn't rock Old Trafford.
Yes.
Southampton were good for 20 minutes. United dominated the other 80. Sorry, 30. And then they missed the penalty, and United dominated the game from then on. They did. And they had a good opening 30, and Southampton had a good opening 30 minutes, and I agree, if they had a score, it could have been a tricky situation, but they didn't. And we went on to punish them. And we probably should have went 1-0 up earlier on in that game through Xerxes.
Yeah, look, I'm not arguing that.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
But he's not setting the side up to play against each individual opponent. He's setting the side up as, this is how we set up no matter who we're playing against. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's the problem. He has absolutely no plan outside of, and this is why I said he was stubborn, outside of, I'm going to set up my side this way and that's the end of it. There's nothing else going on outside of that.
See, he has been tactical. Go ahead, Scott.
I just want to interject that I don't necessarily think that's entirely true because, and this wasn't me that saw this, it was either Neville or Carragher, but yeah, they pointed out that against Spurs, when the Spurs defenders had the ball, United players were just sitting back and it didn't seem like there was a trigger to press. And from watching United this season, that's kind of not how they've played. So it seems like he's made the decision to let Spurs defenders
Have the
have the
ball.
ball. And
Yeah.
so I think he has changed. It's just, why did he make that change? I think people are like, because that just seems like a stupid change to make. Surely there's
Well-
going to be one defender in that Spurs back line who you can set the press. You know, they get the ball. This is when we trigger the press. And it just seems like he abandoned that style to say, we're not even going to press their defenders.
Yeah.
Well, they did do that once. They did trigger the press once, and we nearly conceded from it. That's where I'm talking about when the defensive line was so deep. But one thing I will say about Ten Hag is, and look, I agree with you in some senses, but a lot of managers have a style that they don't change. Like the Klopp's style was Klopp's style. I don't think he tweaked it much per the teams they played
Yeah,
against.
but he did. He played very.
I don't
different.
think-
The philosophies were all the same, right? The way that
Yeah,
he wanted
yeah,
to play
the
football stayed the
principles.
same. But
principles.
the in-game management was different against whoever he was playing against. He'd set the side up differently. He would tell Trent to invert into midfield if he was playing against a Ipswich, for example. He'd never in a million years do that against Real Madrid because he knows the finishers would rip him apart.
I think he would. I've seen Klopp's sides play the same against Wolves as they would against Man City in the past. Personally,
Yeah, I don't think
Klopp
so.
had a philosophy and a way of playing and a way of pressing, and I literally feel like I've seen Klopp play the same against Wolverhampton as they would against Manchester City. Scott may be able to give more insight on that, but
Oh, look, I'm not a tactical. I don't really notice them things, but it did always fit. Like, I don't know whether who's right or wrong, because I know LA's right. Like, we had the same principles in every game, but I wouldn't know too much about if there's slight changes and variation. But I would assume there is, because Pep Linders has gone on the coach's voice and stuff like that, and he's talked about individual games where they've tweaked something.
Yeah. But let me give you another example. Let me give you another example. Sir Alex Ferguson. He went into games against Barcelona and he went, right, I need to take Lionel Messi out of the game, so I should have put Ji-sung Park on Lionel Messi. He said it in an interview a few years ago. He said it's the worst mistake of his managerial career because he didn't make that in-game tweak. The rest of the rest of the team was set up exactly like they always play, but he didn't make an in-game tweak and he lost the game. He also talked about putting Pirlo on Park on Pirlo, and he just absolutely followed everywhere. And Pirlo said, I thought I was going to wake up with him at the foot of my bed. He took that game and went, right, who's going to hurt me? I'm going to make a change to the way that I want the team to set up, but all of our philosophies remain the same. I'm still going to have Ronaldo and Tevez out wide with Rooney through the middle. I'm still going to have Carrick and Scholes playing from deep and feeding forwards. He did all of the same things, but individually, he told the players to do different things.
Well, Ten Hag's done that in the past, and players have gone on record saying that. Johnny Evans in the last month of the season said, I have to praise Ten Hag's tactical flexibility, because the things he changed are the reason we won games. So he can be tactically flexible, absolutely. And the system we play this season, the press we have this season is different than the press we had last season. It's a different press. We didn't always press in the 4-2-4 last season. We didn't always press in the 4-4-2 either. It was usually a 4-2-3-1. And we kept getting caught on the hybrid press over the left and right wingers. And that's why he's changed to a 4-2-4 or a 4-4-2 to be more compact in midfield. That formation we played against City, when he tweaked it completely, is probably the reason he's changed the press. So we had the narrow 4-4-2 against City in the FA Cup final and we won the game. That was tactical brilliance. Like, I don't know if we can, like, I think we're all in agreement that was tactical brilliance. I know he sat back and soaked up pressure, but probably the best United sides of all time have sat back and soaked up pressure at times and caught teams on the counter, you know. But I do agree with you that he is a stubborn manager. And he does have his own principles, but inside his own principles is a possession-based system to try and suffocate opponents with a high line. And that's why I don't understand why the line is so deep. That's my point. He's always played a high line, apart from when he played at Utrecht. But at Ajax, it was a high line because his main influence is Rinus Michels, who played total football. And the total football brand is high line, possession-based football. Try and suffocate the opponent within their own half. That's my biggest gripe about the low line.
Let's take it as read, just for the sake of the conversation. Let's take it as read that Ten Hag has a clearly defined style of play, and he is capable of making individual tweaks to the setup in game. right?
Mm,
In game management, let's say he's capable of doing that. I don't think he is, but I'm gonna take your point, and we're gonna move on from there, right? Why isn't it working? So is it the players who aren't listening to him, or is it he's not sussing out the opponents well enough, and he is making tactical adjustments, but they're just wrong? In which case, he's not got the respect of the players and they won't listen to what he's told him, or he's not clever enough to work out the opposition and he's getting it wrong every week. Because since last season, we lost 14 games last season, which is the most in a single season ever, and we've already lost 3 games this season in the league. So whatever he's doing isn't working. Why isn't it working?
Can I just jump in on that?
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Dylan.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. Honestly, I think there's an issue in communication. It's been well reported previously that the players often come away from training sessions or doing drills saying they're confused around why they're doing it or what the point of the exercise is. So there's obviously an issue with communication. Now, one would think that with the coaches he's brought in over the summer, that should help things. And not to get too deep into this, because I'm sure it'll be a topic that comes up a bit later, but one of those coaches has been particularly visible up until the Spurs game on the sideline, and clearly has a good relationship with the players. But he just strikes me as someone who is very direct, very to the point, but not always very clear. There's a difference between being direct and being concise. And I think he's very direct, but quite often will leave players in the dark. All I have to go off on this is reports, right? Yeah. But the same, my kind of gripe with this is because I think it comes back to like a trust and belief thing from the players to Ten Hag. There's a quote from an Athletic article, which I'm going to read from Laurie Whitwell. You might have all read it from yesterday. And actually, it was I think it was mentioned on Muppeteers mentioned it as well. The quote is, "There was nothing particularly unusual in the dressing room afterwards, just a determination to reset, starting in the Europa League game at Porto on Thursday, with Ten Hag telling his players there is always a new day." Now, to me, that is not the same Ten Hag we get an interview saying, good is not good enough, you have to be better. He's gone in there and said, oh, it's okay, we just need to do better, like we'll forget about it tomorrow. Well, you shouldn't be forgetting about it tomorrow. No. You should be coming in early, working it off and working to make it better. So I worry that it's not the same Ten Hag behind the scenes that is the one that we see in press conferences, post-match interviews, the one who can be quite defiant, and he has been since the summer, where there was a vote of confidence in his favour. And also I think there's an issue with communication between him and the players.
Look, I think an issue could be, I think his personality translating into English might be an issue as well. I think he just doesn't come across as a guy, and me and Dylan, we've had arguments about this in the chat, but he doesn't seem like the type of man to come in and motivate people. Like just the way he comes across. And I think it might be a translation issue, because even Aaron Slaw, he speaks perfect English, but in press conferences sometimes he says a word and he's like, oh, I'm not sure that's the right word. And the same thing is probably with Ten Hag as well. And maybe the reason he was so successful at Ajax was because he was speaking in his native language, and he was able to put his personality across because he was speaking in a language that he knows rather than a second language.
Able to articulate his ideas a little bit better in his native tongue. Maybe that is a factor, but if that is a factor and he's not working to fix it, that's also not a good thing.
Can I just say, we are the only club who've ever criticised, if those reports are true, we're the only club who've ever criticised his training methods. Every single other club he's been at have praised his training methods. Players that he's played under, players that have played under him have, praised his ability to convince a team to believe they're going to win. Orby Emanuelson, when I think he was either at Go Ahead Eagles or Utrecht, said that exact quote about Ten Hag. His strength is in how he can convince a team that they can win a game. He'd say things to them before the game, and it would happen in a game. De Ligt said the same at Ajax. Frankie de Jong said he's one of the best trainers he's ever worked under. Dusan Tadic said he is one of the best tactical minds in football. So what's happened at United? Maybe you're right about the translation thing. I do think his English is still not great. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't think his English is bad.
But
it's not.
But it's not his native language.
No, he's not fluent. So I do see the point from the communication thing. Maybe the communication isn't coming across as well. But then again, he had McLaren in the backroom staff last season, who is a brilliant communicator.
He is. And
So,
speaks Dutch.
Exactly, and speaks Dutch. So if Ten Hag was struggling to get his ideas across last season, I don't know whether McLaren had a big say, but surely to communicate the ideas a bit better, that would have been something that was utilised. And Van Nistelrooy as well is a much better communicator than Ten Hag. So surely again this season, if he can communicate his ideas properly, like Bielsa was unbelievable at Leeds. He didn't speak English.
Not a fucking word, no.
He got a translator. He
did have a
got a translator in.
The thing with
That's
Bielsa,
what
though,
I'm
is
saying.
Bielsa's like a
in terms
larger than
of-
life character, though, and his personality comes out in his actions and stuff like that.
Yeah, fair. I agree with that. Yeah, Bielsa's very what's the word? He's very charismatic, and what's the word? What is the word?
Emotive.
No, it's like when you get a disease, contagious. That's it. Very contagious.
Fantastic.
He's very contagious. Yeah.
Well,
And
one thing
I
I'd say, but Dylan, one thing I'd say,
let me just talk about the reason that stories never came out while he was in Holland about not liking training methods and things. Do you think there's the same level of media scrutiny in Holland as there is in England around the biggest club in England? Because there are journalists in the UK that are literally fighting each other to get a story out about anything, true or not true. It is a completely different world.
I think
the
it would have
Dutch
been
media are
disgusting.
disgusting.
To be fair.
The Dutch
The
media,
media are disgusting. Yeah, but
they
it's
are
not
more
the same
critical.
level.
Nah,
Van Basten came out yesterday and said Rashford is shit at football.
Yeah, no, I get that, Dylan.
And
but
why are all
nobody
these ex-players?
Nobody gives a shit about FC20. Nobody gives a fuck about 20.
No, what I'm talking, even at Ajax, though, why are all these ex-players
Ajax,
joining Ten Hag at Manchester United? Surely they would have been happy with his methods while they were at Ajax, because you wouldn't sign for you wouldn't sign for a manager you didn't like if they were at the previous club and you didn't like them. You wouldn't sign to another.
Somebody's offering me 350 grand a week. I don't give a fuck who's offering.
None of them are bar Anthony. I don't think any of them are getting over. Well, De Ligt maybe. De Ligt and Anthony are highest paid. Mazraoui, I'd say, is on about. He's on probably more than he was on at Bayern. There was only one reason Mazraoui left Bayern. Really, I'm not going to get into it, but.
The thing is, like,
I want to know now.
just thinking back to your point around everyone at his previous clubs.
Well, not everyone. There's obviously people who.
Yeah,
no.
Don't worry, I'm not going to pull out an example of someone saying he was the worst person I've ever met. No, my point is that when you look at, I guess, the players, caliber of players and level of players, and also sometimes the age of players who are saying it, do you not think it's easier to motivate young, hungry players? So, for example, when I think of De Ligt was young, coming onto the scene, wasn't a name. De Jong was young coming onto the scene, and when he moved to Barcelona, didn't then want to come back and join him. You've also then got people like Mazraoui. Now, De Ligt and Mazraoui, did they come back because their form's fallen off and they think, well, actually, this is someone I played good football under when I was younger.
Yeah.
I felt comfortable under.
So, and do you think it's easier to motivate players who maybe aren't technically as proficient as some other players out there, but they get by just by being gritty, working hard, and just like running through a wall for their manager? It's a different caliber of player and profile that he's working with now. He's working with players who are proven. You know, some proven to be good, some proven to be crap, but they're proven and there's an ego there. And people who, you know, I think understand that, you know, managers, as players do, but managers maybe have a ceiling. And some of these players may now be thinking he's met his ceiling.
Yeah, I think Ajax might have been his ceiling.
Yeah, look.
Maybe. Well, Casemiro did say this is, again, I think it's Andy Mitten. Casemiro said he was absolutely shocked with how tactically astute Ten Hag was. And that's Casemiro. Daley Blind has said similar in the past, and he's not a young, impressionable footballer. He's been through it all. Berghuis as well. And I think Tadic was a bit older when he went to Ajax. Did Tadic go Southampton to Ajax? Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah.
So he would have been a more experienced footballer. So I get your point that definitely like nurturing the likes of Garnacho, Mainu, that's a bit easier if you're a manager. That is a bit easier. The younger players are a bit, because I wouldn't say they're impressionable, but this is their first kind of experience with management.
Oh,
So
they've
it's
got something
easy.
to prove. They've got something to
Yeah,
prove.
yeah,
Someone like
absolutely.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic coming into the club, he's got nothing to prove to anybody. How do you
Well,
motivate a
and
Zlatan
Ronaldo.
Ibrahimovic? Or Ronaldo,
Ronaldo,
exactly.
Well, you don't, but Ronaldo was a baby at the end of the day. A baby.
Yeah.
But look, I get your point. I do get your point about the younger players being more impressionable, but there is examples of older players too.
Yeah, but I think those players are like, you're talking about Tadic. He's like an experienced player. He was in the nearly in his 30s, I think, at Ajax or
I think he's
up there.
And he was unbelievable though.
No, but it's kind of like Tadic at that age. Like, footballers are always learning, but at that age, you've kind of learned nearly most of your stuff in football by that age.
That was the best period of his career though.
Is Ten Hag's issue is the fact that he's just simply not good enough to get a player from going from point A to B, but then he can't get them to point Z. And it's
why are people saying he's one of the best tactical minds on the planet? Like, if you're one of the best tactical minds on the planet, you can get them to go from point A to B, and he's done it in the past. So he got whatever about his Ajax period in the Champions League, right? He got that Ajax side further with lesser players than that Manchester United side last season against worse opposition. Why?
The same players. He signed them all from Ajax. What do you mean?
He hardly signed the whole team. He didn't sign the whole team. Actually, the team he got Ajax to the semi-final with, it's the Ligt Mazraoui that he signed now. Martinez wasn't in that team. Andre Onana was. Is that it? No, Martinez was.
You can be tactically astute, but if your player development just cuts off at one point, then players just aren't going to get better, and then those players won't be able to commit to the tactics you're trying to put in because you've developed the player to a certain point, and then you can't get them over that hill and get them even better.
But like players also, like, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say also, yeah, you're right. Okay, this is a good point. Like in the Champions League, you've got this outside there, but he's also won 2 domestic cups here. So is it a case that he's a cup manager and can get people up for a cup and a trophy and a one-off game? I know he won the league in Ajax, but
3 times in a row.
Yeah, he did, but at the time he had a great backroom staff.
No, he did 100%. I agree with you there, and he had Overmars was above him, and it was a very good structure, which he now has.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
hasn't had previously.
Okay. No, but yeah. Anyway, potentially maybe he's just more of a cup manager.
I can see that point as well, but we then have that 4th season in the league where he was successful in the league with United getting third.
But I don't think he was. I think other teams were bad.
Well, that's like saying now. That's like saying any team.
Newcastle nearly finished 3rd. We did really struggle. Newcastle at the end of the season.
That season. Newcastle were very good side that season.
Newcastle were very good.
Newcastle were brilliant that season.
Listen, everybody else, all of the other clubs around, Chelsea, Liverpool, they all had off seasons, and that's the only reason that we.
Well, that's like saying they're only where they are now because we're going to have an off season, same as last season. You can't say every time United do well, it's only because the other team's done badly.
And we don't think that's
an off season is one.
We were good that season.
We've been poor for 2 seasons, and 3 seasons, 4 seasons, 5 seasons. We've been poor for 10 years. It's not
every season.
It's happening over a decade. But
not every season.
Hang on. Let's go back to this point of Erik being a cup manager. Let's talk about his league form over the last 2 years. I said it earlier on. We are
1 year.
6th. Can I finish? We are 1 season and 6 games into a new Premier League season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's lost 17 games.
Yeah, it's abysmal. Absolutely.
Games. Now, anybody else, Dylan, you'd be calling for their head. Mourinho.
Would I?
Said, yeah.
I never wanted Mourinho gone. I never wanted Mourinho gone. I never wanted Van Gaal gone. I never wanted Moyes gone, and I never wanted Ole gone. I thought every single one of them managers deserved more time. Now Erik has got that time.
He has, and he's not.
And if the results don't turn around, he will go. He will go. But I thought every single one of them managers deserved more time. Van Gaal especially. He won 7 of his last 10 games and got sacked.
Yeah, but he got sacked because of the previous season. And
did we not finish 5th?
But the 5th is not enough for this club, is it, Dylan? You can't say the standards are we need to be finishing 5th.
Coming from where you're coming from, coming from where we were coming from before Van Gaal took over, we finished 8th. Sorry, was it 7th or 8th under Moyes?
I think it was 7th, wasn't it?
So that is progress in 1 season and an FA Cup, and you're sacking him. And look, we're not doing a Louis Van Gaal bleeding love in, but
No, but all you're
All of them
demonstrating
managers-
to everybody here, Dylan, is that you don't think it's ever acceptable to sack a manager, and your opinions
No,
on
I'm
Ten
not
Hag
saying
are
that.
kind of
He's
mute.
just saying that they should.
I never said that. I said they all deserve more time, like especially Ollie, because they've given. I know it's a different structure, but they've given Ten Hag the
Scott
time
came
that
prepared.
they should have given Ollie.
They
Well,
have
yeah.
given Ten Hag the time.
But-
They have given Ten
Yeah,
Hag the time,
that's
and he
something.
hasn't done anything with it. He had an okay first season. He finished third, and he won a League Cup. Fine.
It was better than
we,
okay.
we, we were we were all sold the dream in that first season of right. It's only an upward trajectory from there. Then last season it was an absolute horror show, and this season is proving to be no different. So, what evidence do I have that
Can I ask you a question?
anything is going to change? Well,
Can I ask
answer
you a
mine
question?
first. Answer mine first.
No,
What evidence do we have?
because my question kind of leads into your question. Did he overperform in his fourth season?
Yes.
Okay, so he overperformed in his fourth season. So now this is theoretical. If you swap the two seasons around, what are we doing now?
But that's linear progress, Dylan. It's going the other
No,
way.
I know, but
It's going
67
down.
injuries is gonna halt linear progress. Let's be honest, it is.
But
It
there's
is going to
no-
halt linear progress.
We've
Yeah,
only
but you
got
don't have
injury to a
injuries
left
now.
back position.
And
I
we're
know we don't
losing
have injuries
games.
now, but we have played a lot better this season than we did last season.
No, in
There's been
patches.
progress.
It's not consistent, Dylan. It's patchy.
Right, the Palace game, right? We had, I think, like 1.45 XG in the first half. One of them chances has to go in. The game's a completely different game if it does.
Crossbar twice in about 5 seconds.
And most teams, with the chances given in the first half, put them chances away. And the game is a completely different game. The Brighton game is the exact same. Garnacho kicks the ball at Xerxes' knee
He cleared one
from
off the line.
2
from the-
yards.
Right, I'm going to use a famous quote now, right?
2 yards.
If my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a bicycle.
But
It
no, but you
doesn't.
have
It
to-
doesn't matter.
No,
You can't.
but
But the fact is, we didn't. We didn't win the game. Dylan.
Garnacho's a professional footballer, and he kicked the ball at another man's knee from 6 yards out. He did. Like, he kicked the ball at another man's knee from 6 yards out. I love Garnacho. He's an unbelievable player. But them misses are unacceptable. They're getting into goal scoring opportunities and missing. The
So,
manager can't put the ball in the back of the net for you.
That entire game came down to that one moment, did it? What about the other
No, it
89
didn't.
minutes and
But
50 seconds in the game?
Individual stupidity at the end of the game to lose us the game. Leaving
We didn't lose the game.
the Brighton game we did.
Brighton
The
game.
Brighton game we did. Yeah, the Brighton game we did.
Stupidity at the far post.
But
The
who's
chances in the
coaching
Palace
that?
game.
No, you can't tell me that Ten Hag told the players to all run away from one person.
Come on, LA. To leave
have-
up
No,
the
but
back.
it's
6 men on the front post.
it's kind of like
It's
this.
discipline.
What the job of a
Come
manager
on.
is to create an environment where players don't make these silly mistakes. And with these
Agreed.
silly
So you were
mistakes,
saying the manager said run away from the far post and leave the
no,
back post.
I'm
free.
not saying he said that, but it's to create an environment where these mistakes don't happen.
But
So,
individuals,
yeah,
go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I agree with what Scott's saying here. My question to the room here on Scott's point would be: we all saw the Arsenal Man City game, yeah, where Arsenal
Yeah.
went down to 10 men and then they were disciplined for a half
They were.
football, and they were impossible to break down. Right? Same thing happens to Man United.
It's a
Well,
different scenario.
It
Arsenal
did
were holding
happen
a 1-0.
against
Arsenal were holding a 1-0 lead. They weren't chasing the game. We were chasing the
It
game.
was a 2-1 lead.
Sorry, they were holding a 1-goal lead. We were chasing the game. We couldn't just sit back in the block.
even if you take the Tottenham game out of it, my question would be: do you think that the players at Man United would be that disciplined for that length of time in a half football?
They're not.
If
well drilled enough.
well, we've sat in a low block in his fourth season and got 17 clean sheets. So I'd prefer us to go back to the low block and play counter-attacking football. I think the team it has since Fergie left. That's the system we've played best, and it's been no matter what players we've had, sitting in a low block and counter-attacking teams, we've always been at our best, and that's what I'd like to see him go back to personally.
So-
I prefer
why
that.
doesn't it?
Let me ask you a question then, Dylan. Right,
that's the
because
thing.
after the Arsenal Man City game, everybody was lauding Mikel Arteta for the way that he coached his team and set his team up to be
100%.
defensive. Why is it that he gets praised for that, but when the defenders aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, not being coached, not being well disciplined, and not holding two banks of four and being solid, why isn't that the coach's fault? How come it's the coaches?
I've never
doing
seen that
when
Arsenal
it's
team not
done
be-
well? But that's
I-
the thing.
I-
Mikel Arteta has coached them well. Whereas in our side, when we're not being defensively disciplined, when we're not tracking our men, when we're not marking the man at the back post, when we're conceding 70 goals a season from cutbacks. And it happens every
No,
week,
well,
Dylan.
well, that was
every week we all say
that was
the group chat, the goal goes in for the opponent. Everybody in the group chat says the same thing. Another cutback, another cutback, another cutback. When you're seeing the same goal go in against your team time and time and time again, you have to be asking questions to the coach.
Well, I have never actually abstained Ten Hag from the blame of everything. The cutbacks were his fault. So
Right.
some of the systems that he's played haven't been acceptable, but some of the individual errors have been unforgivable. It doesn't matter what environment there is. Some of them individual errors are schoolboy errors that shouldn't be made.
It's not an individual erre when
that
it
comes
happens
back to
30
just the
times a
environment.
season.
Yeah,
So you were telling me,
an individual error is
no,
when it
hold
happens
on.
once.
You were telling me, right, let's look at the individual errors this season. The Casemiro ball into them Liverpool 3 players. That is not Erik Ten Hag's fault. That's an individual error by stupidity from a player. That can't be blamed on the coach. That back post thing, how can you blame that on the coach? 7 players in one section of the pitch in the 96th minute of a game. How can that be the coach's fault?
Look, we're not saying that these individual moments are Ten Hag's fault, but he's created.
But I'm talking about these individual moments changing our season.
When every single game you're talking about, another individual mistake, there's an issue, and it's an environment issue.
I'm not talking,
Exactly.
but hold on.
Exactly.
But
How
the
many times has there
Brighton
been a game where you've come out of it and said, "Oh, we've lost that because of an individual error"? And if that's happening so many times, then it's an environmental issue.
I didn't say all last season that every single reason we lost the game was because of individual errors. Nowhere. If you can find me saying that, please do. Never said that in my life. Never said every game we lost last season was an individual error. But the Brighton game was an individual error that cost us hugely.
The
Liverpool
Garnacho one where he hit the ball against Xerxes' knee is an individual error, and Casemiro is an individual error, and the back post is an individual error when 9 players went missing. They're all individual errors. But there are so many individual errors, Dylan. You're not getting it. But they're not individual when it's 30 times a season.
But I named 4 this season that have cost us games. How can you blame them on the manager?
Because there's 4 of them.
Exactly.
You know that the Garnacho one where Xerxes cleared it off his line. You can't give 1% of the blame to Ten Hag. You just can't.
He didn't clear it off the line. It went in, but he was offside because it hit him.
Yeah, but it was going in. It was going in anyway, though.
Yeah, but Xerxes had already
and it's
committed.
a completely different game, and it's a completely different outlook on the season.
And
that's what I'm saying.
Fine.
Them individual.
That's fine. I get that. I'm understanding of the fact that was a very momentary lapse of concentration. But when you're having momentary lapses of conversation that cost you games, 17 games in a season and 6 games, it's no longer an individual error. No, but I'm talking about last season. I said at the start of this section, 17 losses in 1 season and 6 games. And we're going, it's an individual error. It's not, Dylan.
I didn't
consistent.
Say. When did I say every single one of them losses was an individual error?
But what is every single one of those losses then, if not a reflection of the manager not setting up the side well enough?
A lot of the losses, I'd say a lot of them, right? I have to give a lot of them in terms of the injuries made a huge effect on last season, right? I don't think any of us can deny that injuries made a huge effect last season.
It did, but it had an effect on a lot of teams. Chelsea, Newcastle, Liverpool.
But we had more injuries than anyone. We had no left back for the whole season. We barely any centre backs for the season. We had 35 all playing centre back. Yes, centre back. Casemiro, as poor as he was last season, missed a lot of games. Hoyland missed a lot of games.
I'm not saying it was.
Mount missed the whole season.
Injuries. I'm saying it's
no,
not,
but they affect him.
Excuse.
People are talking about City not winning the league now because of Rodri. One player.
We had 67.
Yeah, but that's because the margin. That's because the margins at the top of the table are so slim. Like missing that type of player is.
But what about 67 injuries? That's going to drop you from 3rd to 8th. 67 injuries will drop you from 3rd to 8th. Liverpool. Fabinho's legs gone dropped them from 2nd to 5th.
It wasn't just him though. It was Jordan Henderson as well. And
So
James
that's
Milner.
2 players.
That's
2 players.
Fabinho, Henderson, Milner.
And now I'm not saying that the injuries are the entire reason we didn't finish higher up in the table last season. He has to take blame because some of the setups in individual games, even with the injuries, we should have won them. I'm not using them as an entire excuse, but I will be on the fence, which is the same fence Ineos probably sat on, and said, look, the injuries would have had a huge impact on the way he plays because he's all about what's the word he always uses? Automations. He likes to drill automations into his players. He likes
So
to drill sequences into his players. This is what he's done at every single other club he's ever been at. And when you have 67 injuries, you cannot drill sequences into players. It's impossible.
But when
How
we
many
look at
injuries
the
have we got
when
this
we look
season?
at the types of
There's sequences this
injuries
season. You can't say there's no sequences this season. There is sequences this season. There's sustained periods of
15 minute
possession.
patches, in 15-minute
Well,
patches in the occasional
The
game.
Southampton game was a 70-minute sustained period of sequences. The Palace game was 65 to 70 minutes sustained period of sequences. Better teams with better finishers win them games easily, even with the 75 minutes of sequences. Liverpool were poor the other day against Wolves. Awful. They still won the game because they can finish the ball. They can put the ball in the back of the net.
But why? So then, why are this particular group under his stewardship? And do you know? I might even take that last bit out. Why this particular group? Why are they so emotionally unbalanced? Right? If they score first or they have a good start to a game, they can sustain something for a decent period of time. Right? The Southampton game, they were poor for 30 minutes. Onana saved the penalty. We went up on the other end and scored a couple of minutes later, and then suddenly, there started to be some decent football played. Why is it that one goal changes games, but you see, pick any of the top 4 or 5 teams at the top of the table, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea now, I would say, like, I think you could always bet on over 4 goals on a Chelsea game. You see them concede a goal, and you're not necessarily thinking, well, that's game over. Whereas you do get that sinking feeling when it comes to United.
Well, last season, to be fair, we come back from a lot of 1-0s and 2-0s to win games with McTominay in the last minute. So it's not always when we can see goals that I think we're going to lose. Can I be honest when I say this, right? I've been watching United for a lot of my life, right? The last 10 years, I've seen extremely gifted managers come into this football club. I've seen extremely gifted footballers come into this football club, and I've watched them just turn to dust before my very eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've no explanation for it. I've seen us have brilliant football teams. Remember the season we had Falcao, Di Maria, all these players. I said we're going to win the league. We finished 5th, and it just feels like the shirt is too heavy for these players. Feels like the dugout's too big for every manager that comes into the club. It feels like we're too big for our own good. And I don't know how that gets fixed. That's why I worry that we're going to be back in this situation in 7-8 months' time with another manager.
I don't agree with that sentiment. I think United have had managers, and there are reasons why they haven't worked out. Van Gaal, the fans turned against because they didn't like the style of play that he was playing. They didn't like the defensive part of it. Moyes came in.
Every manager.
I'll give it to Moyes. Moyes came in and he had an impossible job. Like anybody coming in to follow, unless you're a huge name in football, anyone coming in to replace Sir Alex Ferguson was going to fail. Mourinho came second, and he got Fred, Dalot, and Lee Grant as signings. It's hardly a way to go and push on and challenge.
It's probably not a way to push on to challenge, but it's enough not to be 6th at Christmas.
Yeah, but teams have been 6th. Teams have been 6th at Christmas and ended up 3rd and 2nd.
It was I think it was our lowest points tally ever at that stage in the Premier League season. We were awful.
Now we're looking at our lowest points tally in ever in a season. We're now in that territory.
United famously started slow, not this slow, but like what I'm saying is, Mourinho was a top class manager and he failed when he tried to take us to that next level. He failed when he tried to. Well, he spent over 450 million.
Yeah, but still, the United squad,
he spent over 450 million. How is that not getting back?
Even the famous interview of
Mourinho,
Aguero, Fernandinho. United's squad wasn't great, and it
wasn't good enough to win the league. But he spent over 400 million. He bought Lukaku for 90 million. He bought Pogba for 90 million. He bought Bailey. He bought Lindelof. He bought Matic. He bought Ibrahimovic. He bought Sanchez. Yeah, that's fact.
And when he bought those players, United made a leap. They went from one season winning the Carabao Cup and the Europa League
for 70 million.
The next season they came second, and then the next season they bought Fred, Dalot, and Lee Grant.
And we're 6th at Christmas after spending 60 million on a midfielder, and Dalot, one of the most highly rated right backs in.
We're not here to talk about Mourinho. We're not here to talk about Mourinho. We're here to talk about
Erik
Ten
though.
Hag.
He's a handsome man.
He is a very handsome man. But that being handsome doesn't win football matches. Otherwise, I'd be.
Olivier Giroud begs to differ.
Yeah. Listen, we're here to talk about Ten Hag, and I think the crux of the matter here is that the football's not good enough, the results aren't good enough, and ultimately that is going to cost the man a job. Because if the football was really, 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 really good, but we were losing games, you could kind of go, okay, well, there's something to work with here. There are some factors at play that can change. If the results were really, really good and the football was bad, who cares? The results are good. But when you've got both, when the football's bad, the results are bad, you can't continue under those circumstances, Dylan. You can dress it up however you want.
Do you think the football has been bad in every game?
In every game, no. But if you were to take a tally of the amount of games that were
this season, last season, fair enough.
Fine.
This season,
fine. But we're not judging a manager based on this season. We're judging it on his entire tenure, right? Which is why I'm allowing you to have the his first season was good argument, right? And in which case you have to allow me to have the the second season was bad argument.
Yeah,
and his third season is going just as badly because we've already lost however many games in the league out of 6. Right, 3. So we've lost 50% of the games so far this season. We drew the other one. We've won 2 games. One was against Fulham, one was against Southampton. They're both in the bottom half of the table. So let's have a look at it in its entirety. When the football is bad, because 6 games of the season we've played well, I think twice, and I'm giving my opinion, right, not yours. If you think we've played well in other games, that's fine. I think we played well twice. And one of the times that we played well, we didn't win the game. And unfortunately, this is a results-based business. So we played well, but we didn't win the game. Oh, look, it's another one of we're not playing well and we're not winning games. You can't have it both ways. We're not winning games. We're not playing good football. Ultimately, the club of this stature, it's not good enough. It doesn't wash with me. I want to be winning the league. I want to be competing for the Champions League. I want to be competing for every trophy. Fair enough, he's won the FA Cup and the League Cup. That's not good enough for this club, Dylan. It's good enough for Fulham. It's good enough for Fulham. Yeah, brilliant. Southampton won the FA Cup. Wigan won the FA Cup. Cardiff reached the FA Cup final. It's not a fucking credential. It's not.
It is.
You've got to be competing for. No,
you can't say the FA Cup's nothing. Let's be honest.
It's a major trophy.
It's not none, but it's not a credential.
It is a credential.
It's not.
No, because you.
Oh my God! How was the FA Cup?
It's not a sign of progression.
No,
it's not.
It's a
winning
trophies
can never be understated. If you tell a Spurs fan that winning the FA Cup isn't a credential, they'll bite your leg off. It's obviously a credential.
Portsmouth won the FA Cup, and look where they are now.
It's still
Wigan won
a trophy. It's one of the biggest trophies in English
football.
football.
Got relegated in the same season.
They did.
Okay, listen, we beat the best team on the planet to win the FA Cup.
Yeah, and Wigan bet Man City.
We beat Liverpool on the way to the FA Cup. We ended the
season after or something.
That argument defeats you. We played the best team. Let me finish. You said we played the best team in the world to win the FA Cup. We should be the best team in the world, my friend.
But we're not. We haven't been for 10 years under any manager.
Right, and unfortunately, that's also not continuing under this manager, and therefore a change has to happen. It has.
So we've lost 3 games. So right, fair enough. Right, you're saying you want to win the league now. Do you think we're in a position under any manager within the next year to do that?
Yes, I think the squad is good.
Why do Ineos think we're 3 years away?
Because you asked my opinion, not Ineos's.
Which manager wins us the league in the next
Which
year?
manager wins Manchester United league? Because we don't have a better squad than Liverpool, Arsenal, or City.
I think Pep wins the league with our squad.
He's not coming to United.
I think Jurgen Klopp wins the league
right.
with our squad.
Available managers.
That's not what you asked me. You said who wins the league with our squad, and I gave you 2 good managers. And
I asked you, do you think United win the league?
Our manager is not a good manager. I don't think
he is a good manager.
We could, but he's not, Dylan.
So available managers, who wins us the league in the next year?
I have to look and see who's available. I don't know who's available.
Right, I'll name some: Amorim, Tuchel, McKenna, Seb Hones, Nagelsmann.
McKenna's not an available manager. He has a job.
Graham Potter.
When does that stop us before?
Right, but you said available managers. He isn't available if he's.
Well, he will be available if Manchester United come in and say, "I want you to be my manager."
Okay, but so could Pep. You go to Pep and say,
"Well, Pep is a Man City manager. He's not going to come to United."
Tevez went to Manchester City. It's happened. But you could go to Pep and offer him £350 million a year, and he'd go, "Yeah, fine, I'll come and manage United."
Do you think any of the managers I named could win United League in the next year?
Who did you name?
Tuchel, Nagelsmann, Amorim.
Tuchel, yeah.
But he rejected us. It came out from him up.
Tuchel wouldn't win
No,
United League.
Again, you didn't ask me if he would come. You asked me if I thought he would win. The
No,
league.
I think
Stop-
Tuchel would come
stop
if we gave him.
moving the goalposts.
I didn't
to
say
fit- to
Tuchel wouldn't
fit
come.
your
That was
argument.
Alfie.
I know.
I didn't say Tuchel.
Can I also ask a question? Just because there was an interesting small little segment of that heated discussion, shall we say, where LA, you said he's not a good manager, and Dylan were like, yes, he is. Is he a good manager or is he a good coach?
I think he's both. I think
He's a good man.
I would disagree that he's a good manager simply because look at how many individuals he's fallen out with. Being a manager is being a man manager, right? Being a good coach is being tactically astute. Communicating clearly what you want players to do when they're on the pitch, putting in patterns of play. He can probably do all of those things. Maybe not the communication, which we spoke about earlier. I don't know that he's the best manager in keeping everybody in that squad happy because they're certainly not playing like it.
No.
As a manager,
who's he
yeah,
falling
look-
out with? Bar Ronaldo and Sancho.
So Ronaldo and Sancho are the big ones.
Casemiro in the FA Cup final, he stormed
Casemiro,
off and got on a
Rafael-
plane.
Well, he dropped
Rafael-
Casemiro. That was.
Rafael Varane.
Well, that's falling out with someone, isn't it?
It's not. It's dropping someone for a game and then reacting
You can't
negatively.
blame Ten Hag
not
for
falling out with
Casemiro
someone.
kicking off 'cause he got
Casemiro was on a terrible
You
run of
can't
form.
blame
Amrabat
Ten
was
Hag.
playing well. You can't
Hang
blame
on,
Ten
hang
Hag
on,
for dropping a player.
I didn't blame Ten Hag for dropping a player.
But that's
You
not
said,
falling out.
Well, let me finish a sentence for once in this podcast, for God's sake. If your question was, who has he fallen out with? And I gave you an example. I didn't say he was to blame. I entirely believe that Casemiro was to blame. But you asked me to list players he'd fallen out with apart from Jadon Sancho and Ronaldo. So I gave you one.
I don't
He
think he
fell
fell
out
out
with
with Casemiro
Casemiro.
personally. I don't think he fell out with him. Like I think he dropped him for the game. And Casemiro reacted negatively.
According to his agent, they fell out because Casemiro immediately got on a plane and went back to Brazil.
Thing is, either way, publicly or privately, the point stands. Are they playing like a group of players who seem like they've been managed in a good way?
The thing is, lads, if you can name me a manager that's never fallen out with a player, I'll transfer you however much you want. And we saw it with Klopp and Salah. Them two fell out. Everyone falls out once.
Who's the best man manager at United in the last decade?
In the last decade, probably Mourinho.
No, Ollie obviously no.
I'd say
You
at
don't think
United,
Sully?
Man manager, no.
At United,
Ollie was their friend. He wasn't a man manager. He was their mate.
Well, if Mourinho, fair enough, right? So Mourinho and Ollie, right? In terms of Josh's point, both of them in their final season, the players looked like they weren't doing anything for.
And
they're supposed to.
And it was their final
that's
season.
why it was their final
Listen
season.
to me. But this isn't a ten. This isn't. Is this a Ten Hag problem? Players have done this under Mourinho and Ollie.
Not
So-
the same players.
Yeah, but
There's only
the-
3 players.
No, I'm
in
not
the-
saying
in
it's the
the
same
match
players,
day.
but
5% of the
players.
squad is Ten Hag's squad.
No, I'm not saying that. Jesus, Steve Christ. I didn't say that. I said players at Manchester United who have been under good man managers have done the exact same thing that is happening right now. So is it a Ten Hag communication issue if it's happening under Ollie and Mourinho?
Well, what do you think? Do you think Old Trafford, the stadium, is whispering to the players? He doesn't like you, this manager. Somebody there's got to be doing it, and it's the managers. We've had a string of really probably not very good managers, and so they've left the club. Now we have another one who is probably not a very good manager, and he's going to leave the club as well.
Well,
It's just that simple.
I don't think the belief of Ineos is that we've had poor managers at the club in the past decade. I don't think the belief of anyone is that we've had poor managers.
Let's say then, I was watching an interview the other day, and I can't remember who it said who made this point, but I actually thought it was quite interesting. They said let's say on Monday morning, right after the Spurs defeat, all the players are at the training ground, and Sir Dave Brailsford walks in, or Sir Jim Ratcliffe, or Dan Ashworth, whoever it is, Omar Barada walks in, and he says, "Just so we are absolutely clear, right? Yes, okay, bad performances will get a manager sacked, but if you're not performing, you are contracted by the club, and we will get rid of you in January, we will get rid of you in summer. Like, name doesn't matter, regardless of what it is. You play for us, you fight for the shirt, you don't fight for the manager's face, right? You should be putting yourselves on the line every week or every day, but certainly on the pitch every week, every weekend. And if you don't, you'll be sold." if that happened, would you see an improvement in the performances on the pitch?
I mean, I don't
I'm
know,
not saying.
you need that to happen though.
One thing I will
Say
say
again?
to you, right? One thing I will say to you is they tried to sell a shed load of players in the summer and they couldn't. So they
This is
tried
a
to get rid of
hypothetical
players.
question. It's hypothetical.
It's
No,
hypothetically.
I'm not saying I'm not saying the players are down in tools for Ten Hag. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying players are down in tools for Ten Hag. I think it's actually been the opposite for a lot of last season. I think they tried as hard as they could. I'm not saying they're down in tools, but your question was about the communication issues when we've seen similar under good communicators. So I don't think it's fully a communication issue for Ten Hag, like as the whole thing. I don't think he's a great communicator. And maybe that will end up losing him his job. Maybe his communication issues will end up losing him his job. But we've seen the same things under good communicators, is my point.
I think if anything's going to cost him his job, or whatever it will be, the straw that might break his back will be exactly what we touched on right at the top of this. It would be how stubborn he is.
Yeah, that is the one thing I think will lose him his job. Yeah, I think stubbornness is, and every Dutch coach comes down to their stubbornness because they believe that football should be played in a certain way, and they never change it.
You can be stubborn as long as you're winning, and unfortunately, he isn't. And ultimately, it's a results-based business, right? So, listen, this has gotten very, very heated. It's gotten it got really interesting. But listen, it's all love. We all love each other. We're all brothers. I'm surprised there was no cursing in the podcast, which is.
I don't think there was.
Yeah, that's properly surprising.
We did very well, I think. To be fair,
we've got.
I thought it'd be worse. Truthfully,
yeah, I mean, it could have been better, but yeah, it could have been worse. Listen, we've got 4 Man United fans on the podcast and 1 Liverpool fan, so let's quickly poll. After Alfie, you said you were on the fence at the beginning of the podcast, so your vote will be interesting. But after an hour of me and Dylan giving our points on whether Ten Hag should stay at the club or not, Josh, Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out.
Ten Hag out.
Scott?
As a Liverpool fan, I hope they give him a lifetime contract.
Okay. If he was the Liverpool manager, Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out?
I would be Ten Hag out.
Okay. Alfie?
Ten Hag in.
Dylan, did I manage to convince you?
no, but can I say what I think will happen?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I do think he will probably be gone on Sunday, personally.
After the Villa game.
Or Villa.
After the Villa game.
Yeah, I believe we'll be Porto and lose to Villa, and I think the club will make a decision then. But I am Ten Hag in.
Okay. Listen, don't just take 5 morons on the internet word for it. Feel free to let us know in the comment section below who you think should be the next manager because he's going. And also whether you're Ten Hag in or Ten Hag out. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. My thanks as always to Dylan, to Alfie, to Scott, and to the returning Josh. We will see you guys next week. Thank you very much.